During the past week, a small article went viral declaring that Fallout players want to ditch the settlement building system. Now, this consensus came from a website called Reset Era, or Resetra, I'm not sure how it's supposed to be said, which is clearly modeled after the forum discussion systems that dominated the web in the early 2000s. It's a simple setup with basic and minimalistic UI and small banner ads. Very much a setup intended to encourage discussion and not influence peddling, which saturates most of modern social media. It's on this forum that a poll was run about whether to ditch settlement building, and with about 1,500 votes, 70% of the site's admittedly small pool said, "Get rid of it. It's tedious and clunky." Well, this little discussion was picked up for an article on a website called The Gamer, which you would be forgiven for thinking does actual reporting. Most of the content published on The Gamer website are just fluff or opinion pieces. When reporting does happen, though, it's usually extrapolating from one thing said by either one inconsequential person or small community and spun out to say lots of nothing as an excuse to make an eye-catching headline to drive clicks and sell advertising space. Now, I'm saying all of this up front because the entire discussion of this topic is not serious. And the only reason it's been brought up is because of an intentionally manufactured spicy headline whose only purpose is to clickbait. And knowing that, this half-made and reported thought did go viral. So, it served its purpose. However, this did get me thinking, what is a Fallout game? When a small community overwhelmingly says the building system needs to be abandoned, it begs the question, what exactly are people looking for or thinking of when they hear the title Fallout? Is it the world? A bombed out and forsaken landscape riddled with radiation and abandoned buildings to explore? Is it a resource ripe for the taking, broken as it may be, that multiple factions want to fight over, and you serve as the linchpin who determines the victor? You know, the main story? Maybe none of that matters, and all you think about when going into the wasteland is fighting freaks of nature and how many different ways you can build your character into a death-dealing battle tank. Personally, I fall in the majority camp for this small poll that has little to no love for the settlement building system. Sure, it was fun on my first playthrough, but on subsequent rounds, I just want to adventure and not spend hours trying to rebuild the Commonwealth. The more you avoid the settlement system, though, the more you're forced to engage with the game's other systems, which seem increasingly half-baked or poorly thought through as you get to know their finer details. This brings up the fact that there are finite resources when developing a game, and arguably, the system that got the most attention for implementation in Fallout 4 was building and settlement management. One of the prevailing sentiments that emerged from this half article was that the people that don't like the building system also don't care if it's there so long as it's not forced upon you. However, those same people regularly spoke on how they want the other systems to be better fleshed out, for there to be more cities or trading outposts, more meaningful side quests with interesting stories, and additional ways to modify and customize your clothing, armor, and weapons. Now, I know I'm going to get hate for saying this, but you can't have both of those out of the box. It's possible with things like mods, but that's a scenario of separate passion projects developed by people who are not trying to ship a commercial product. The argument is pretty simple. The more you work on developing a separate system that has no bearing on anything outside of it, the less time and money you have to work on any of the systems that it does not interact with. Shooting is great, but it has nothing to do with settlement building, so it goes on the back burner. Same goes for NPC dialogue, side quests, collectibles, extra dungeon locations, you name it. If you're spending large amounts of time making a system to be ignored, everything else is going to suffer, and the best you can hope for is striking a reasonable or mediocre balance between them. Don't take this the wrong way either. This doesn't mean that the building system is bad. It just means other aspects of the game pale in comparison to it. And frankly, I just don't think about playing Minecraft and building my castle when I start up a game franchise known for being an RPG. Are simulation games and city builders fun? Sure. Do I play them? Yes. Do I want a game series known for role-playing to be either of those? No, absolutely not. Settlement building is divisive for this explicit reason. For a lot of people, it's fun to slowly contribute resources towards a project that you can see slowly grow over time. And if you find that fun, it's easy to get caught up in the cycle of constantly going out because you need those resources. It's a question of what you prioritize. If building settlements is your central focus, then all the other mechanics of adventuring, shooting, and questing can be lackluster because they're not the main focus. You're not here to shoot and loot. You're here to pick up all of the tin cans and glue bottles you can find, along with whatever you can sell to buy bulk shipments of cement. Meanwhile, if you prioritize adventuring, questing, or playing different types of character builds, well, you're going to be disappointed. Most of the systems help to push forward settlement building in a big way. So if you don't build settlements, you're going to start seeing the gaps in what qualifies as a reward. A handful of caps and an unimpressive weapon is lackluster payoff for a job well done. But to a builder, every location is flush with valuable junk that you need in order to build X, Y, or Z. There's admittedly some overlap. For instance, things like adhesives, screws, and aluminum still mean something if you're building mods for your weapons or patching and upgrading your power armor. But it's not a one-to-one example, as even when you mod your own weapons and armor, you don't need as many resources as when you are constructing one settlement after another. In other words, you're 1 foot in the grave, because you need to collect, but not as much, so you get some of the satisfaction of junk collecting, but also expect the good loot, only to be given an unimpressive gun and a handful of caps. In Fallout 4, the central problem with the settlement building system is how, if you don't engage with it, it opens up a void within the game's balancing. So many of the other systems are either underdeveloped since the building system was given priority, or they were built in a way to service and support the building system. Thus, you get a gameplay loop that is half broken if you don't really search for large quantities of junk to rebuild the wasteland. Fewer quests, fewer rewards, fewer cities and trade hubs to meet NPCs at. And all of this isn't even getting into the granular detail about how many skills, perks, or collectibles are restrictive or reductive in how they benefit your character if you don't always play in a specific way. That, however, is a can of worms for another day. For now, though, I'll leave you with my own personal opinion. Get rid of settlement building. Because when I play a Fallout game, I want to play an RPG.